Okay, here we go, Tiffy. Welcome to the Mind Body Energy Project.
Yes, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I have to say, I'm glad that we're done with the relationship topic.
I want more. Give me
Oh,
more
no! And happy new moon. It's the new moon in Libra
today, huh?
today, although you all will hear this tomorrow, but we'll still be in the energy of it. So happy new moon. Are you
Are you
setting
ready for this?
intention today?
Am I setting an intention today?
It goes right in line with our topic.
I don't think I set. My intention today was to get up and get to my two jobs that I had early this morning. That was enough.
Let me tell you something. I like that because, okay, just so you guys know, what we're going to talk about today is law of attraction, and this topic was suggested by one of our community members. So thank you for that.
Yes,
But before we go down the rabbit hole, I like that your intention was so simple, just like a
it had
basic
to be
thing. It
because I
wasn't
could have
like,
slept in.
yeah, yeah, I think that's a good way too of building ourselves up for noticing the creators and the
Yeah,
manifestors that we are sometimes.
yeah,
Sometimes,
baby steps.
yeah, baby steps, because people will
Hmm.
start off with like the grand thought, and then if it's not immediate, they give up on.
I do that too.
But
I
let's
see that
just
in
start
myself.
this off by saying you're creating all the time, people.
Uh
Period.
huh.
You are a
Yep,
creator, period, point blank. You are
that's right.
creating and manifesting all the time. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Now let's
Did we
begin
already say what our
talking.
topic was?
Yeah, law of
Okay,
attraction.
law of attraction. Yes.
Okay,
Law of
so let's
attraction, which
start
leads
there.
into manifesting.
When you hear that, Tiffany, what do you think? When you hear law of attraction, what does that mean to you? What does it bring up?
It brings up a little bit of animosity because I want to punch people in the face sometimes. This is our show. We can be totally honest, right? It's
Oh,
true
that's hilarious.
because they're so buzzy. Like law of attraction and manifest is the secret. It's such buzziness, they're
Mhm.
buzzy words and people get caught up in the glamour of all of that stuff. And then I just see that it's almost as if our own power gets taken for granted. And it's almost like we're just empowering the books or the seminars that we go to about this stuff rather than ourselves and really taking notice of how do I do this? What is my responsibility? And, when it doesn't work out, then we start to beat ourselves up and we lose the sight of what our magic really is.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, so the law of attraction, I know, or what I've heard of it is pretty much like teaching people that if whatever they focus on, they manifest, or like
Hmm.
they can create or manifest anything just by like pretty much giving it their mental attention or their focus. Um, so I do know, and I do believe, like, yeah, I'm sure that works for some people,
Hmm. Well,
obviously
it has
proof
to. It's
of that. Yeah,
focus. Yeah.
yeah. But I think the downside is that not everyone is even, what do you call it, prepared enough for that basic step.
Right.
You know what I mean? So if you
Yep.
tell somebody, like, just focus on something and you're going to create it without that person understanding the work on themselves that has to be done in the process, or their own limiting beliefs, and just because you say like, oh, I erase that thought, like there's actual work that has to be done on us that
Hmm.
amplifies the speed, maybe you would say, like the speed of our personal manifesting ability. So I've not been to a law of attraction like seminar.
Me
I tried
neither.
to watch The Secret when it came out and I fell asleep, so I
Yeah.
never saw like how it really unfolded. But yeah, I think it's interesting that it is this. I have heard a lot of people just like echo that again and again, like, if you think
Yeah.
about it, I could get it, I could achieve it, and then they're really sad when it
Yeah. And
doesn't happen.
it's almost like just saying the words. If I think about it, I'll get it.
Hmm.
It'll happen. But that's um sometimes it's just words, rather than actions or beliefs, or actually really sitting and tending to the time it takes to understand what it is you actually do want to even attract. I mean, we sit and think that we want this one thing, and we might not even know how to focus on that because it's not actually what we really want, but we haven't taken the time to sit down and figure out what it is we actually want or why.
Yeah. You know, I want to back up to like where this even came from, really, because I personally was never drawn to law
Hmm.
of attraction or The Secret in terms of like the the way it was given.
Yeah.
So I some of the concepts that I heard people talking about were familiar because of what I had read in other spiritual teachings or
Right.
practices, right? So
Yep.
like, you know, something like Buddha saying the mind is all there is, right? Or like even if you read the Hermetica or anything about Hermeticism, you know that there are 7 um, Hermetic principles that are
Hmm.
based on more of like the laws of the universe, or like the laws that govern everything, right?
Right.
So then let's just say there's a lot of cultural ancient teachings that kind of speak to this whole concept of mind and creation, okay? But then like fast forward to more recent, so we have this book, The Think and Grow Rich, which I have but haven't read. I will get around to it one day.
I've
And
got it
then
here. It's
fast
bold
forward,
and highlighted and underlined.
yeah, but you know, it was based on a lot of what has then become the modern version of The Secret,
Yeah,
and then like
absolutely.
this whole movement of the law of attraction. But if we again reel it all back to the origins and the spiritual laws or principles that all of this was kind of like rooted from,
Hmm.
there's a lot of self work and self study, I would say, and understanding of more than just the law of attraction, but understanding other universal laws and
Right.
principles that come into play. So it's not
Yeah.
as simple as just like thinking, boop, there you go.
Right. And that's what I think, we're hopefully blowing the spot up on that right here and right now, because, it is, you see a book that looks like this, it says Think and Grow Rich, and you're like, that's all I have to do is think about it and it'll happen. People like, they get lost in that, the glamorized concept of it. And unfortunately, the culture that we're in now, we've become a little bit more superficial in the sense of like, we just see pretty shiny things and we get caught up on it and we're on to the next thing. We want instant gratification. So it's not really shown to us how much work we really have to do. um, but the other component of it too, when you were talking about like, when we do focus on something, we're inevitably, everything's working to move in that direction.
Right.
There's a book, one of the books by Malcolm Gladwell. I read all of them, but I forget which one of it was in. But it's like, you need, like, if you want to be a master of something, you have to put 10,000 hours of practice into it. That's a
Hmm.
lot of hours, but, and if you're quantifying that time, inevitably you're going to get to that place because you're focusing all of your being on that one thing. If you want to learn the violin and you spend 10,000 hours on it, that's what you're going to do because you're so focused. It's the same thing with our thoughts.
You reminded me of 2 different things. So one part of it too that kind of trips people up is conflicting beliefs. So
Yeah.
sometimes it could be something like, say you're like, I want to win the lottery. And you're like, yes, I want to win the lottery. I see myself winning the lottery. I can feel myself. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Lottery, lottery, lottery. Ugh. But then there could be this other aspect of you that is scared as hell to win the lottery
Yes.
because you think people are going to come after you. You think your family is going to like whatever, people might judge you, people might rob you, all of these fears that are on the other side that are conflicting with this thing that you think you're creating and intending, right? So
Right.
of course that's going to cause some lag or disruption in what you think you are attracting if there's
Hmm.
conflicting beliefs. So it goes back to that whole like focus, that real focus of intent in your self work. But the other side of that is people also become obsessive and want to control, right? So say you
Yeah.
said that to someone, right? And they're like, okay, I'm going to let go of any fear that I have. I'm just going to be like, I win the lottery, I win the lottery, I win the... But they become so obsessive and so controlling that it makes their whole field tight because they're like, they have like this kung fu grip on it that actually doesn't allow a harmonious flow in their field.
Right.
So there's like this really sweet spot of almost like where people say, don't hold too tightly to things, just allow, just allow. And it sounds like crap to people who want something immediate. But
Yeah.
either way it goes, you can disturb the flow of things in your fear, in like kung fu grip, but you can
Hmm.
also disturb it with, there's so many layers to like,
So many. But as you're saying that, and you like fear is the perfect word because I do think that there is a sweet spot, and it's almost like any amount of fear that creeps into the equation when you're trying to achieve something that you want is going to, it's going to push it in a certain direction that's going to shift something in our field and the energy that we're putting out. It's going to shift it in a manner that's going to turn us away from that one thing because life isn't easy, but there's parts of it that should be. And when we are in flow and when things are just working, then there is no fear response. And then the things can just come in. And it's, that's with anything, with things that we deem positive or negative, when we're not being so constricted, it can flow through us.
well, that's one of the things that's really important in this too. It's not just the mind. I mean, the mind is a huge component because I mean, like the mind is the breeding ground for everything. I mean, we'll go into more detail for our Patreons in round 3 and talking about some more of the laws that fit into this whole equation.
Yeah.
But the mind and then frequency. So the frequency you hold also plays a big part, which again, I don't know if they talk about this in the law of attraction classes or whatever, but it's not just, I mean,
Do they
and
do
for
full classes
anyone,
for this?
oh, I mean, I remember seeing like people do
Seems like
full
workshops.
blown, yeah, I think they do workshops. I think they have like huddle groups and like
Oh,
it's
wow.
like a thing. Like it's
Yeah.
no joke. And then I know a lot of people love there's a woman who channels and a lot of her stuff is focused on like creation and all of this, where again it may work very well to certain people who allow themselves not to just get their mind right but align their frequency, which is
Hmm.
another part I don't know that people talking about. But one thing reminds me of this is really funny actually. When I first started in all of this, like, spiritual stuff, Reiki, blah, 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 I had a journal where I was going to write down everything I wanted to do, like every class I wanted to take, every person I wanted to study with. I researched it all, right?
Hmm.
So I had this little journal and I looked up like Reiki, I looked up who the best teachers were, like in my opinion, and I wrote down who they were, what they taught, how much it cost, blah, blah, blah. I did it for everything I wanted to do. And for everything that I had written down, I just was like, okay. Like in my brain, I thought like, I know I'm going to go there. I wasn't worried about how. I didn't care about like the whole how was just gone. Like I didn't even care. It was just I knew like, oh, this is really cool. I'm gonna go to all of these events. Can't wait. Like, and I didn't obsess about it. It's like I put the book away and I was just like, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna go to these things. Like how great. This is so fun. Everything I'm learning. Do you know within a couple months I had done everything I had written down, right? So I was
I
like,
believe it.
this is amazing. Like I just wrote the stuff down and it's so great. Then what messed me up in the game, Tiffany, I started hearing all these people talking about this crap, law of attraction, this and that. Oh, focus your brain, do. So
Yeah.
I became obsessive about this stuff. Wasn't manifesting anything, okay? Because I
Yep.
had that kung fu grip. All of a sudden, I was trying to control instead of what I was doing before naturally, just like, this is cool. This is what I want to do. Yeah. My whole frequency around it changed. And I was effed up in the game, okay? Effed up. And it took
Yeah.
a long time for me to recognize how much my then attempts to control messed it all up. I messed it all up.
Well, I think when we try to control, we're trying to figure out how to do it. And we don't necessarily have to figure it out because
Right.
when we try to like focus on the hows and how to make this work, like, yes, there's an effort that has to go into it. But once you start to close your mind, on, like you focus, but don't close your mind on a narrow path because then you close off all of these other things out here that may bring you to that which you're intending to go towards. So closing the grip on it and having the control, it takes away all these other things that are probably necessary to get you to where you're going, but we'll lose sight of them.
Well, it has, when you said that too, it reminds me of like the main discipline in all of this is really like the discipline of self-connection,
Yeah.
because like, and everything always comes back to this, and you may think like, oh my God, why are they saying this again? Because it's the truth. That's why. But
Yeah.
really, it's like the discipline of like connecting with yourself, acknowledging your mind. Like, what kind of thoughts are you generating? Because whatever you are generating up here is speaking directly to what you're creating all the time and manifesting
Hmm.
anyway. Whether you are attracting certain things, blocking certain things, stuck in patterns in your life, like whatever it is, you will start to have an awareness of how your personal mode of creation is working by understanding, like, the first, you got to know what the hell you're doing. Just just sit with yourself and start to observe you and start to notice what fears come up, what doubts come up, what are you focused on, what do you pour energy into, do you even put any effort towards what you say you want to achieve, or are you focused on like, you know, something else? A lot of us do, we say we want this, but all of our attention is over here on some other crap.
Hmm.
Like, you have to first like connect with you and recognize the hand you're playing and what you're creating. So this
Yeah.
week, work that out.
And then, I mean, as you're saying that, I just thought of all the past, the past shows that we've done, starting
Mhm.
with mind mapping,
Yeah.
and really understanding what your thought pattern is, because you could be putting intentions out there and saying, oh, I want this, and I open myself up to it. I mean, what comes to mind is relationships. How many
Mhm.
times are we looking for a relationship and we don't have one, or trying to get our relationship, if we have one, in a direction that we want it to be, but we're not sitting and taking inventory of us and what our blocks are,
Mhm.
um, putting it out there, like writing down all the things you want in a partner, and then just waiting for them to come. But you're not, maybe, and they're not coming, but maybe you're not sitting with yourself and being like, oh, wait a second, I'm scared of this. And I put these specific things in there for this person to be like, because I didn't want to include these things because I'm fearful of this. Well, there's still fear in that body that you're trying to manifest this thing or draw it into your life. And by not looking at that and saying, why is this sitting here with me, and changing the resonance of what it is that I actually want. And we don't see that as kind of like a dark spot holding us back, because we don't want to take the time to look at it.
Well, that too speaks really a lot. That's a good one. It speaks a lot to our fear and that control thing. And I challenge everyone to try this. So if there is something that you think I really want to create, like whether it's a relationship, it could be a career move, it could be
Hmm.
anything, whatever it is that you think, like, say path and purpose. I want to align with my higher path. People say this all the time, but usually when they say that, they have an idea of what that looks like. Like when I say, I want to align with my path of like supporting others, my spiritual blah, blah, blah. I have an idea in my head of what that looks like
Yeah.
what my mind, my control, what I think it has to look like. But what if there's this part of you that can't even fathom the highest and best for yourself? As much as you think you know what you want and what you need and what it looks like, there's a higher part of you that knows that may come in a different design or a different packaging or a better look for you. Do you see what I'm saying?
I sure
So
do.
see if you can challenge yourself this week, whatever it is that you feel you want so badly. If you can release your control and fear and say, align me with the highest version of this thing, and regardless of what it looks like.
I would love to share an
Does that
anecdote.
freak you out? Like, are you afraid to take out the control, that you don't have to dictate what it looks like, the elements of it? Nothing. Just alignment with
Yeah,
my path,
that's real
alignment with my
freaking
love.
scary.
Yeah.
Real freaking scary.
I bet you
So,
move closer.
as you know, Yolanda, I'll share this with our our listeners. I I juggle a lot of things,
To say the
to
least.
say the least. But my passion is doing this stuff. What we're doing here is, and like, helping educate and support people to be empowered and to live their best lives, you know, by self-discovery and by really learning how magical we are, and through yoga, meditation, Reiki, all that stuff, blah blah blah, whatever. And it's been my passion since I can remember, in varying degrees along the way. So one of the things I was doing is I had a financial office job, one of the like 5 jobs that I had for 7 years, and I decided to quit it at the beginning of 20. What year are we in? Is this 18?
18.
Shit. I quit at the beginning of this year.
Oh my
It's very
God.
confusing. So I quit at the beginning of this year, and my intention was, because I wanted to dedicate all of my time and energy to doing this passion, because I really feel like it can help people.
Mhm.
So like, I'm going to quit. And I was going to quit everything. I was going to quit personal training, yoga teaching. I was going to quit my financial contracting jobs I had. I was going to quit it all and go into like high-end corporate accounting for an entire year and just put money away while I worked on this stuff in the background. And I had an option. I was being recruited to a company for a
I
few years, and I
remember
finally
that.
was like, okay, I'm ready. And she was like, shoot, we're not hiring right now. We don't have a need. And I'm like, well, this is poor timing. And it was really like just a few minutes of like, holy fucking shit, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Luckily I had some things to fall back on, but I had, my intentions were there and I had it all mapped out. And I was like, this is going to be great. But it didn't work out that way. And so this year I've really been wrestling with fear and letting go, because I know what my purpose is and I know what my higher intention is. And I've kind of been forced to look at that and to lean into surrendering to that and seeing what happens. And I will tell you, everything that happens, there's always a little bit of fear that wants to like creep in and like whisper in my ear and be like, ooh, you should run back to what's safe and secure. But that's not safe and secure for my soul, but that's a whole nother story. Um, but every time the road does rise up to meet me, and
Yep.
I have to keep on coming back to, like, I know what my higher purpose and intention is, and my focus needs to turn to that, because all these other things that I've lined up ever since, be them completely out of what Tiffany's original plan was, have been necessary steps along the way, and they have carried me. So but let that be a lesson.
No, it's really true. And okay, fulfillment. Oh God, every time you say stuff, it like sends my mind
I
in 20
know.
different ways.
Same.
So a big thing around that that's coming up is like the fulfillment component. A lot of times too, what we think we want, we think it's going to fulfill us. And even when we get those things, like you hear all the time, like people who are wealthy, they have the cars, the houses. Remember that Tom Shadyac, that movie, I Am. Remember he had
Mhm.
like
Oh yeah.
everything.
Yep.
And he
Yep.
felt totally like unfulfilled and like went on this whole trek of what's the meaning of life. And now he lives like in a what do you call it? Like a trailer.
Hmm.
He doesn't have to, but he
Yeah.
just, So it's interesting too, a lot of the things that we try so hard or spend so much time to call into our life, we give so much attention and focus on, and it's not even the thing that's going to fulfill us most. And a lot of times when we do come to this space in our life and our path where we're like, no, truly my heart is asking to align with my higher purpose, to align with my path, to align with the creator aspect of myself, whatever it is you ask, when it comes from this space of like asking for higher understanding or alignment, you better believe stuff is going to start shifting and changing in your life. It's going to be uncomfortable, and there
Hmm.
will be so many opportunities that will smack you, like gut punch you, like
Oh yeah.
spit in your eye, to have faith, to let go of your control, to let go of what you think you know, to like really, like, it's so humbling. You talk
It
about
is.
being smacked into humility when you genuinely want to come onto this path of like consciously creating and consciously living. And
It's
even my own story of the crap I went through trying to align with all of this, I still to this day could not tell you how things worked out for me, but they did. And
yeah.
it doesn't even make any sense how things worked out, but they just effing did. And a big part of that is too, it's like there are these huge lessons in our own personal fears, our own personal
Mm-hmm.
controls, because all of this is unique to us to some degree, you know. So again, the traditional LOA, if you get the book, if you get The Secret, if you get whatever these different formats of it may be, for some people it's going to work. It's immediate, easy peasy. They have no blocks. They're just like, hey, yeah, I can do whatever. Some people, they already are in that zone, that frequency, no problem.
Yeah.
Some people need to do some work.
Mm-hmm. So I wish I could record my internal thoughts as you talk, because I had like 25 of them go
I
off and I
know, it's
can't
why
write
it's
fast
so
enough.
hard.
It's too much. So one of them was we forget that people just listen to the podcast and they can't see our antics sometimes. So when
Yeah,
we do have pauses and laughing at each other, it's
you
because we're
guys should
probably
watch us
doing,
on YouTube.
yeah. Um, so one of the things is that we, to figure out what it is we actually want, we need to disassemble that which we've accepted as our own truth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we've got commercials, we've got friends, we've got schools, we've got books, you know, all we have all this information, and whether it's true information or not, we're still taking it in and accepting it as something that's going to build our belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And it might not be your belief. And I think it's really important to do a health check, to sit back and be like, is this true to me? Can you sit with yourself and say, this, while this thing has been kind of showing up in my life and kind of determining my behaviors and actions, is it actually truthful, and does it feel like it fits into who and what I think I am? You know, and
Mm-hmm.
if it does, great. If it doesn't, question that and start to peel away those layers and say, like, maybe this thing that I thought that I wanted, I actually don't want it. I mean, that's what American marketing is built on, for God's sakes,
I know.
right? Why do you think you want these cars? And then the other thing, as you were talking about that, I was, you know, deciding to live through your higher self, or being shown what your higher self is. And then we go through all this turmoil to get there. The question pops up, like, why the fuck would I put myself through that? It doesn't sound like fun at all.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I think about it, I'm like, well, yeah, it can be torturous, but there's also these glorious things that come up, you know, that are so fascinating that you like can't even articulate some of them sometimes. And the other side of the coin of that is, the way I see it, is living a life of complacency. And to me, like, complacency, just, I'm not about it. So even though it can be a roller coaster, you know, the other options are just kind of living without the beauty of everything that we're capable of,
Yeah. No, that
and the
makes
journey
total
of finding
sense.
that out.
And that's the thing too. I think in a lot of this, in the law of attraction and like what we want to create or are creating, like as we speak, a lot of times we have to look at just like what's the easy ones, you know, like what's the easy feeling. That makes me think of the story I shared. Like when I had the journal, I wrote it down. I was very easy breezy. I didn't care. I was just like, yeah, I'm going to the stuff. I don't know how, whatever. I was like, there was no, I had no resistance. I had no fear. I had no doubt. I had none of that. I was just
And
like,
you didn't
yep,
even really know what it all was at the
no,
time either.
yeah, no. It was just easy breezy feeling like, oh,
Yeah.
this would be so much fun. Like, oh, great. And then I think of there was a year when I did the Coven of Consciousness a couple years ago. One of the ladies in there, when I tell you, she was like a manifesting machine, this lady. She was like everything
Really?
oh my God, everything she said she wanted, she'd call me and be like, Yolanda, you know what I was thinking? I want a blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to do it? She's like, yep, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm talking down to like beach house. Like this lady was like a man. And we would joke about it all the time. I was like, oh, what are we cooking up today? But the thing about her is the way she was like easy breezy. Like she was just very like, yep. And then recently there was a woman or client that I have, the same thing. She had in mind this thing she wanted, and at first there was like a little bit of like, oh, is it really gonna work? I don't know. And then somehow she worked her way out of that doubt and just went
Hmm.
into like, yeah, this is what I want, and it's going to support what I feel aligned with. It's going to support me in all that I'm trying to do, blah blah blah. Honey, if she didn't manifest that thing, she I think that's a big thing too, is like us checking in again with ourselves. Like you have to have that discipline of self-connection. Is
Yeah.
it something that you feel is just like, oh yeah, that's going to work out. I don't know how. Yep, got this. Okay, it's good. Or if there is some fear or reservation or doubt, you have
Mm-hmm.
to work through that. But
Right.
another thing is recognizing that it sometimes looks different and being
Uh-huh.
okay with that. Like sometimes what we think we want, again, we get so attached to the detail of the picture of the thing that we don't allow the room for like something better or something more aligned or
Mm-hmm.
something more supportive. Sometimes just be and open.
Yeah, I was a little bit attached to the plan that I had going forward because it would have been really nice to make a lot of money doing something,
Yeah,
put it away, and just have this freedom.
it's a
So
great
there was
plan.
a little bit of fear that was attached to that because it made me feel safe.
Right.
Um, but looking back on it, I wouldn't, what I have learned in the past 9 months of this year on this journey of not having done that, I never would have learned that stuff or had the experiences that would have given me the opportunity to be where I'm at now. And I have to look at that and say that that was what I needed. And that was, you know, that
I'm
was my
so glad you
intended
said that.
course.
I-
But I also want to
Good.
jump back to the easy breezy stuff. So a question that's probably coming up for people is like, I don't know how to be easy breezy, or I try to be easy breezy and it's not. And if you're that person, I am with you. I am here to support you. I get it. And it's hard, we think like, well, I can't be easy breezy like that person. And that right there is an indication that you need to sit down and see like, why can't you be easy breezy? There's layers that need to be worked on. There's some things that are holding us back from being easy breezy and just enjoying the ride, even though I hate
Yeah.
enjoying the ride too. Trust me, I'm not about it. I mean, I am, but I'm not. And then also the idea of attachment. Like I was saying, I like was slightly attached to that story, but why do we attach to the doubt? What is it that's bringing up for us when we say, as you were saying, that woman, she's like, I want to do this, but I'm not sure. We attach to those feelings of doubt for some reason. We need to figure out why we attach to it.
Yeah. Well, what you were saying too, just about not being easy breezy, that's hilarious. But it reminds me of sometimes in these processes too, when we are so focused on our path and what we're creating and what we want, when we do act so rigidly and we are so like attached to outcome, that's where we get a lot of times disappointed and a lot of times feel like we got knocked down, run over, and we're like, oh my God, why did this happen to me?
100%.
But the
Yeah.
thing is that you're really learning a lesson. So sometimes when you are trying so hard for a particular thing and it seems that everything is going against you, or it seems that like you're getting punched in the face around it, sometimes that's like an indication of like, maybe you need to sit the F down. Like
Hmm.
maybe there's something in this that you're not seeing. Or maybe there is, again, something that would better serve you. Or maybe just it's not this exact moment. Maybe there are things you need to cultivate to help you build up to whatever that particular thing is. This is another thing. So, recently, some shifts and changes that have happened in my life this year, particularly, one of my friends, she pointed out to me, she was like, do you remember probably like 5 years ago, we were sitting having coffee and everything that's happening for you right now, you literally said, this is what I want, blah, blah, blah. 5 years prior. Did that happen overnight? Heck no. Did I even notice that I literally was now experiencing those things that I said I wanted 5 years prior? Heck no. That's another thing. We often miss it. We
Hmm.
oftentimes don't even realize that we're living exactly what we asked for and what we created. And sometimes, again, there are things we have to work through or learn that help us move towards whatever that particular manifestation or creation may be. So
Hmm.
don't be disappointed again if it's not exactly what you said you wanted, because you might be getting something more valuable in that
Hmm.
you're being stretched to learn, to grow, to transform something.
Or something that needs to
Something.
happen prior to that, what you think you want.
Yeah.
And this thing that comes up before you get what you think it was what you want, that's helping you get there, might even change that what you thought you want. So
Hello, honey, high five.
yeah.
Yes.
So you had this thing that you think you wanted,
Mhm.
and you had all these experiences along the path to get there. You
Yeah,
might find that your path diverges from that completely because along the way you realize that that's not even actually it. So
honey,
staying
amen.
open
Won't you
and
tell him?
easy, staying open and easy breezy to where you're going. I don't want to say on the journey, but it is, as you're going on this journey to get there, you know, be open minded about what's changing and shifting along that way, because we're ever evolving.
Yeah. And
And
that's
when
the
we're
thing too.
stuck on that one thing, we don't evolve.
Right, and that's what takes us out of that. When I just want to point out, because when you just said it again this time, the easy breezy, just so people know that that is speaking to the frequency we hold. So like, yes, you can have things in your mind. You can have an idea, a want, a thought, or whatever, like I want that thing. But the frequency that you hold in conjunction with whatever thought you are holding, they play hand in hand. So the easy breeziness is more of like a, like you're not causing like this static craziness in your field, and you're not clinging so hard that it's so rigid in your field.
Yeah. Or
There
you're
is
not
this
weighed
beautiful,
down a lot
right,
by
and you're not obsessed
doubt
with
or
like
fear.
something that you just like totally lose sight of everything else and lose all balance in your life. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot. So one thing we're going to do is, as you guys know, we have our community discussion around this. Would love
Hmm.
you to share your experiences with creating things, and take some time to think for yourself. What have you manifested in your life that seemed very easy to do? What things have you manifested that perhaps you overlooked? Now you look back hindsight and you're like, oh my God, that's exactly what I said I wanted. And where do you feel there are things you have been trying to create and you feel stuck? And if you feel like it hasn't happened or you feel stuck, really sit in that space and consider why. Do you have conflicting thoughts about it? Are you afraid of what if you actually get it? Like, do you believe that you can have it, deserve it, whatever? Have some of those self considerations and bring all that to the table for next week's discussion.
Yeah. Ooh, this is a big week ahead. A lot
Yeah.
of work to do until next Wednesday.
What are you creating and where are you getting tripped up? And then for our Patreons, um, after our community discussion, we are going to explore with all of you some of the other universal laws and principles that come
Oh,
into
so exciting. I
play
love those.
with all of this. So,
I
ha
love
ha ha
messing
ha
with
ha.
those.
Yes. So if you want to join us for that, you can, of course, become a Patreon. And yeah, so we'll be back next week. Do you have
Can't wait.
anything you want to share to wrap this up, honey?
Um, well, really quick, as you were talking about like writing the list and stuff and you looked back at it, I had done that in the past. I haven't done it in a while. I probably should. Um,
I'm
and I
sorry. Sorry. I
are you
have
getting
to.
delivery?
Yeah, it's my seaweed.
If you guys don't know, Yolanda is addicted. She grabs on very tightly to her seaweed,
Yeah,
very attached to it. But that's okay. You can have
it's okay.
attachments.
It's taken care
My
of.
yoga teachers say go deep into something.
I've gone deep into seaweed.
You go deep into it and see what the outcome is. They're like, if you want to go deep into potato chips, go deep into potato chips. You're probably not going to want potato chips. So I'm waiting for the day where she's like, no more seaweed. We shall see. Okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. Anyways, what I was getting at was I used to do these lists and I looked back on one and I like pretty much covered a lot of them, a lot of where they were like numerical financial goals or like just steps of getting things done. And I was able, are you nervous somebody's going to steal your seaweed now? I see you looking out the window.
No, I'm okay. You're so
Okay.
funny. Sorry.
So on this list too, I put something so outrageous as to that I wanted, because I was doing acting classes here and there, that I wanted to act in a commercial. And I did it. I did a commercial in Hollywood a few years ago. I mean, I didn't make the final cut to actually be on TV.
TV.
Yeah, which I would have made a lot of royalties. So that's a super bummer. But anyways, it was amazing. And it literally came out of the blue. So what I'm getting at is don't be afraid to throw some other things. But that was a really light and breezy thing I
Yes.
threw in there. I was like, this could be fun. Let's see if this would happen. And it did. So,
Yep.
you know, do the serious things that will lead you to a lot of self work and stuff. But if there are things that you're like, don't be super attached to it, but just throw it in there if it's something that seems like it would light up your world a little bit.
Yeah, and it seems the lighter that your heart can be about it, even if it is something that is serious, like, if you can have this lightness about it, again, allowing like a flow within your field around it, it supports it. And again, we'll talk about that in the part 3, about the other principles that apply here, but definitely lightheartedness
Mm-hmm.
helps.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I'm
So
looking forward to see what everybody has to say.
I
Just
know.
share everything with us.
And just remember, you're creating all the time. So just start paying
Uh-huh.
attention to what you're creating, what you're having a hard time creating, and what you may be learning in the process of
Because
all of
it's
it.
you. It's
Yes,
you.
it's all you. Okay, lovers, we'll see you
All
on the
right.
other side.
Bye.